Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are across the country. Let's get started.
I can't hear
First, I
anything.
want to thank everyone for making the time to join us today. I know everyone's busy and it's been a very hectic week, to say the least in Washington, and we've been reporting on that in our publications. I want to start off by thanking the Rockower Committee, longtime members Ellen
Hello?
and Alan
I
Spason.
can't hear anything.
Cannot hear me? Can you hear me?
It looks like Carrie may be having some issues.
Okay, I don't believe I'm muted.
Nope, we can hear you loud and clear.
I can't hear anything.
Carrie can't hear?
Carrie, if you want to go ahead and log out and try re-logging back in. But Bob, I would keep going.
Okay. I want to thank Ellen and Alan, longtime members, and then newcomers. We added Faggy Holt and Joanne Palmer this year. Without them, we could not have achieved what we did in such a short time frame. And of course, a shout out to Laura Desiree and the other folks at KCA for putting the packet together that you all hopefully have in your hands. With the changes we implemented last year and the ones that we have put in place this year, we believe that we have the fairest and most interesting contest in the 40 years of the Rockower Awards. Your input and feedback through the survey and via a meeting we had earlier, they were instrumental in allowing us to get where we are today. This is our members' contest. It's not the Rockower Committee's contest, nor the Executive Board Committee. It is our contest as a whole. So we listened, and I thank you for all your feedback, suggestions, and observations. We, as a committee, know the contest is still not perfect. It will be a work in art every year, as most of these things are. And again, we value your suggestions throughout the year. So I think we're all ready to begin now. Does everybody have the packet handy? And as Laura asked, if you hold your questions, comments till the end or put them in the chat room. I think we're ready to start on the packet, which is what everybody's here for. The biggest change we made this year was the alignment of divisions in order to make them fairer, based primarily on the type of content that is being produced. So Division A now includes weekly and bi-weekly newspapers. It no longer includes monthly newspapers. We moved monthly newspapers to Division B because we felt they better fit with magazines for the amount of coverage frequency they have. Division C is web-based outlets, digital products only, websites only, and the wire services. So those are the three categories, three divisions, I'm sorry, that we will be looking at for this contest in 2021. Okay. I want to go through the packet completely, but the well-established categories we're going to just glaze over as they've been successful for quite a while. So if we jump to category 4, that became our first troublesome category, the Award for Excellence in Editorial Writing. We've noticed in the past years that submissions came in for category 1 and category 4 by the same writers, the same types of columns. So there may be a miscommunication on what editorial writing is. Editorial writing is the voice of the newspaper. It's what usually appears on an editorial page, primarily unsigned, but if you want to put your initials on there. So the biggest distinction for submitting in that category is those entries should not have, I believe this, I believe that. We or the company publication is what this category is for. So this hopefully will allow more submissions from people and get more winners in our contest. Moving to category 6, this is a new category we added. It is for deadline breaking news reporting. This is for an event that could not have been predicted, a spot news, a hard news, or a deadline reporting situation. We're talking about an explosion, a firing, something going on at the local nursing home, something that could not have been planned in advance where you're just saying, oh, just got this news in, we got to go cover it. It was not a planned event. We're not looking for something that's 1 or 2 paragraphs, and we're not looking for something that's 1,000 or 2,000 words with 10 interviews. It's just something that you primarily are going to get up on your website quite quickly within the first few hours. If unfortunately we have a tragedy at a Jewish organization, it's getting the news out there, getting a couple of comments, maybe getting your photos up there, whatever. It's not sitting down and doing extensive interviews with multiple people over the next 3 days. Moving to category 7, that's where you can enter that longer piece, a follow-up or something on that. It's the excellence in news stories. And then this differs from category 9, where feature stories and news stories are actually two different things. And we've seen over the years that news stories have slipped into the feature category and vice versa. So again, news story is really something that's harder hitting. It's not your feature story on something going on out there. The other categories up until 19 are the same. And if we scroll down to category 19, we have renamed that the Award for Excellence in Layout and Design, which was formerly the Award for Excellence in Overall Graphic Design. Some of the divisions have struggled to get enough entries to be counted. So we think this way and the way we've worded how submissions are to be entered will allow for more entries. Moving to category 25, this is the Award for Excellence in Writing About Sports, where last year I think we had 3 columns win, and they should not have been in that category. We are now allowing sports columns along with feature stories and other articles for this year. Okay. Now, if we scroll down to 28, these are the new categories we've added for this year. We added 7 new categories last year, 6 that were judged based on the amount of entries we had. This year, we've added about 6 or 7 new categories, and we're probably done adding new categories in bulk like this for the future. So category 28 and on, we've decided to bring these into the competition because a lot of us enter other newspaper competitions, secular ones, and these are the types of categories they have. Also, the way our business model is transitioning, we are reporting more of these stories. So we wanted to open it up. So 28 is an award for excellence in business reporting. More of our papers are writing about businesses in the community, and they may not fit into a feature story or a personality profile. So this category will look at trends or anything that's dedicated to the craft of business writing. 29 is an award for excellence in news obituaries. This should be a detailed story with original reporting, 1 or 2 interviews with people who knew the deceased. This should not be a paid obituary that somebody submits. Category 30, award for excellence in writing about politics and government. We're all starting to do more of that in the last couple of years. This could be anything local, state, national, or international, anything that's government related. It could be about your local town council, your local city council, your local mayor. And we're asking that judges look at all content that appears in our publications equally. So if you're writing about community township and you write about the mayor who's indicted, that should carry equal weight with somebody who's Jewish, and it's easily known that person is Jewish in another story. Because in your coverage, you're not going to say Mayor John Cohn, who is Jewish. So we're trying to instruct the judges that if it appears in our paper or on our websites, they should look at everything equally. They should not look at something that may not have a Jewish name in it. Category 31 is excellence in education reporting. We all do this now, so we have a separate category. It's anything about the schools, the universities, or education issues. Anything that should be in the investigative or enterprise category reporting should be entered in category 5, however. Category 32, a new one also, excellence in writing about Black-Jewish relationships. This is one story or a series of how Jewish people or organizations are interacting with Black people within their communities. Again, it's not covering a Black Lives Matter. It's, is your synagogue partnering with a Black church and maybe doing something in the community? 33 is a wild card category. We are going to try to put a wild card category in there every year moving forward. And that's going to be dependent on what is going on in the world or the country. Obviously, this past year is a no-brainer. It's COVID-19. The next new category, which I think will be well received by our freelancers, is category 36. This is an award for general excellence for best freelancer. If you recall, last year, we implemented categories for general excellence, best newspaper, best website, and a few other ones where we were awarded plaques instead of paper certificates. And now we're just continuing that with a general excellence award for the best freelancer, since we know we have so many freelancers. And this category would mean the freelancer can submit 3 articles demonstrating a variety of the writing. And let me see if I have anything else. I believe. Okay. And the last thing I want to mention is the other change we've made is with most stories, we are allowing them to only be entered in 2 categories this year, with minor exception. And those are noted in the packet. In previous years, before I inherited this, I think the same story could be entered in 5 categories. We didn't think that was fair to have one story winning so often. That is everything that I have that's new. Ready to take any questions. I know everybody's time is quite valuable today, and I thank you again. So I see there are some questions in the chat room. Let's see.
Oh, and Bob, if you'd like to go over the changes to divisions as well, and just remind everyone of the survey.
Okay, yeah, let's get questions first. I think category 6. Okay, let me get to that. Okay, we have a question on category 6. I'd post a story right away and then write through it as I interview more people. How do you differentiate the final product that may be more robustly reported than goes up originally? Category 6. Okay, so it's the same question. We actually discussed putting a time frame on breaking news. Some contests are like the first hour. We thought maybe 4 hours. It's a good question, and it may be something, Laura, we may have to quickly make a decision on outside of this meeting, because that is a good thing. And the other question is, how does a new politics category intersect with profiles? A profile of a newly elected politician, for example. Can a paper submit for best freelancer if the freelance? Okay, so the politics category is because many newspapers are now covering their community governments because their daily and weeklies aren't covering them. That's a lot of what that category is for. Again, if it's a category that we allow that personality profile to be entered in and politics, that is something you would enter it in 2 categories. But a personality profile is more about the person and his life than what he's doing in politics. The politics one is aimed for reporting about, the Israeli prime minister, the elections in Israel, elections in your community, things like that. Can a paper submit for best freelancer if the freelancer is not an AJPA member, but the publication is? Laura, I'm going to defer to you, but I think the member the person has to be a AJPA member, right? You have to be an AJPA member to enter our contest, right?
It depends on if the freelancer is submitting it for themselves, they have to be a member. If the publication is submitting it and the freelancer is not a member on their own, they can be added to the publication's membership. As a reminder, publications and websites can have up to 20 members linked to their membership. So you can add that freelancer to your group membership and then submit the article.
Okay. Then after I get through the next 2 questions, I want to make sure that these questions were answered to the best of our ability, or we'll have to go back to the drawing board. And we did allow a day or 2 after this meeting that if we need to have a committee meeting to discuss something quickly that we may have overlooked, we can do that. Okay, there's a question about will newsletter and email category come back? I'm not familiar if there was one in the past, but I think anything with newsletters and emails, that would come under a digital presence category. Is that not correct, Laura? When you Do we have that?
Bob, let me chime in just a second. We did have a category. It failed to generate enough critical mass to keep it. There were a number of years where we had 1 or 2 submissions, and so we decided, since it wasn't being utilized as a category, it failed to generate enough interest that we dropped it. So the answer to that question would probably be probably not.
Okay. But what we've done is, it is part of category 21, award for outstanding digital outreach. We were mindful not to drop it completely over the years, but this award recognizes overall digital outreach of the publication, and it includes social media campaigns as well as your e-newsletters. So this is where you would want to enter that in category 21. And again, you would probably want to enter multiple things that you could here if you have apps or mobile sites. Okay, and I have one more comment or question here. Still unclear where I should do with my monthly page 3 column. It's pretty much a one-man show. Those columns are written as the publication's voice, but a few years ago, I started signing them editorial commentary. Okay, that again is the one we really struggled with, categories 1 and 4. So we've decided that if you sign them with your name or your initials or no signature, that's okay, as long as it's in the editorial voice of the newspaper. And let's say we don't write editorials at the Cleveland Jewish News, but if we did, and I said, I believe what happened Wednesday was wrong, and I think the police should have done this, and I think that would have happened, and I signed it Bob Jacob, that now becomes a column. That is my opinion. If I would write it and say, we believe this was wrong, we believe that was right, signed by me, that we would allow in category 4, because that is we, that is the publication. But once you start saying, I would do this, or this reminded me of that, as we went through the last couple of years of what was winning in category 4, those columns looked identical to what was entered in category 1. They were just entered in 2 separate categories. So that's the intent of that. Does personal essay fall under a publication submission? We have a category for, I thought it was category 3, is it, for personal essays? Yeah, award for excellence in personal essay is category 3. I'm not clear on the question. Would it fall under a publication submission?
That's from me, from Carrie, yeah, because it's written from a personal. It's like a blog. So it almost is that like kind of almost like a freelancer kind of situation. You know what I'm saying?
No. Blogs are
Okay.
eligible. We're trying again. The only individual category for the freelancer is the new one that we've created, the best of freelancer. As far as I know, even before I took over last year, freelancers just submit in the regular categories, right, Laura? They're well, yeah. So
Yeah, there's no limitations.
yeah. So award for personal essay, it's a blog. It's by your staff writer. It's by your freelancer. If you're a weekly or a biweekly, you enter it in Division A. If you're a website only, you go into Division C. And for all intents and purposes of the contest, we're continuing what has been done forever, is anything that's published on your website, if you're a print paper, is still eligible to be entered. So let's say we publish 90% of our content on the website only and 10% in print. All that 90% is still eligible to be entered as Division A weekly or biweekly newspaper. The difference is, if you're only a digital product, you have to enter it in C. So if you're, let's say, the Dayton publication, which is a monthly, and some other ones in Buffalo, if you write a lot of content for the website and only limited content gets in the paper, you still would enter all of your content as a monthly newspaper. You don't enter that content as a website. The website is only if you're a website only, or only a digital, like some people are. So hopefully that answered that one. Okay, are there any other questions on anything? I know there's been a lot of changes over the last 2 years, but last year we ended up with a record 826 entries, which is probably more than 100 we ever did. And I think the changes are beneficial. It's what everybody's been asking for. Different categories, more winners, better criteria.
So how long before mail sitting on the piano?
Question?
Yeah, Bob, I was wondering if we have a podcast or an episode of a podcast that's part of a bigger article series. There's a would it but the episode is more than 7 minutes long. Does that mean it's going to be disqualified from consideration?
That is, let me get to find that category. That's a video. Let me see.
Yeah, and I can kind of help answer this one, Lonnie. For podcasts, we actually just saw them started coming in last year. So we're taking the same approach that we would with a video, and the judge can listen up to 7 minutes of it. And if they want to listen for longer, it's completely their preference, but we ask that all podcasts include a summary of what's being discussed in that episode, just to help the judge kind of have a better idea of the series, if it is a series of a podcast or just a particular.
No, I appreciate that. I was considering for a series of articles that we did for category 8, but
Let's look at category 8 then. So award for series of articles that illustrate, yeah. Any,
but as part of that series, there's 2 different interviews that we had as podcasts in our regular podcast feeds that we run, and so they're embedded in an article page on the website and include a summary as part of that.
so this is the excellence for writing about social justice and humanitarian work, Lonnie?
Yeah. Yes, correct.
So your one part of your article or series is a podcast. That's the question, right?
Yes.
Okay. To me, I would submit it and leave it up to the judge to determine how long the judge wants to listen to it. I don't think we have a criteria on that because right now I don't think we're going to have too many podcasts, but it's something, a category that we're going to be looking at again next year as more people are doing that. You know, I would look at the podcast the same as your second story or your third story. What if your story is 15,000 words? It's going to take longer to read that than listen to a podcast. So
no, I completely agree. I just wanted to make sure that, I mean, those are really good interviews that I'm putting up, and I just wanted to make sure that they'd be given the same consideration, even if they do run much longer than the 7 minutes.
yeah, I think the 7 minute category was in the video category.
It was, but it mentioned podcasts being considered. Podcasts were considered from a time constraint standpoint with video.
Okay.
But thank you for that, letting me know. I appreciate that, both. You and
I think one thing we could look at adding to the criteria then is, like in this category where we say other stories and series, we should say including podcasts and other digital or video could be submitted as part of that project. Okay, good questions. Writing about Jewish. Okay, let me see if there's some new questions.
Can I just ask a question? Because I'm having trouble with the chat. I sent it in, but it's not gotten answered. We were a weekly, and with COVID, we've gone down to twice a month, basically every second week, but not always. But we're still the same, like 12 pager or 16 pager. So I don't know quite how to label us. Are we a bi-weekly or are we a semi-monthly? And
So,
like, I don't want to be competing with monthlies, I guess, is my concern.
okay, so if you publish one time a month, you would be a monthly.
So anything else is
Everything else. So if you're publishing twice a month, you'd be a bi-weekly is twice a month. It's not twice a week. So bi-weekly, twice a month, weekly would be, I don't think anybody for the most part is publishing 3 or 4 weeks or 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay, thanks.
The intent of the monthly was, we didn't think it was fair and equitable to have a monthly, which has basically a whole month to put out, one publication, and not doing a lot on the website, competing with weeklies and bi-weeklies that are churning out copy on deadlines. That was the intent of that.
Perfect.
And the magazines, we felt the monthlies would be 12 issues a year or 11. And some of the magazines are 4, 5, 6, or 12. So we thought they were a better fit in the writing mold. For the most part, the Division B is less breaking news on deadline. You have more time to do your work. That was the intent of the committee, to package those two together. Okay.
Okay.
I think there's more questions. Let's see how this works here. Category 6 and 6. Okay. Personal essay. What if you want to enter a story that has a video with it, still in print category? Yeah, I would just, if you're entering a print story, let's say it's breaking news and there's a fire at the synagogue and you shoot video, that's just another component of your print story. Now, hopefully that answered that question. If you're a print publication, it will be entered in that division regardless if the content appeared online. Yeah, okay. Another request for specific categories. We will obviously look at those again. The goal next year is just to maybe add 1 or 2 to bring it up to 40 and then leave it at that. Maybe replace some other ones that aren't seeing sufficient entries. We had a few illustrations this year that we hope to submit. The category for illustration, actually, I think illustrations may be entered in the graphics category. There used to be a cartoon category and it got very few entries. But as more people are doing illustrations, we certainly can take a look at that. But it's the graphics design, I think, was it 19? This is where I would enter. This is award for excellence in layout and page design, minimum of 3 entries and maximum of 5 per person. And it's per 1 media outlet. So yeah, you can take your best 3 to 5. Judging will be done on the entire page. So if you have an illustration, that would be one of your pages. And then hopefully you would have 2 or 4 more pages to make it a full entry. This was actually a category we struggled with because over the years, it has not been extremely successful and there was talk about dropping it. We didn't want to drop it right now. We wanted to rebrand it. But if, again, like podcasts, if more people are doing illustrations and infographics, we will certainly look at a category like that for the following year.
Yeah, and Diana, in regards to the illustrations category itself, I believe we removed it about 2 to 3 years ago. We can definitely discuss with the committee about bringing it back for another year. But I do believe that it was removed at least 3 years ago, but we will definitely look that into adding it back in for next year.
And a comment coming in is that one illustration is not the same as layout design. Absolutely agree, it's not the same. But this is right now the closest category that we can have. And a lot of times that illustration is on a page with something else, or it's a full page illustration, which would be a layout and design. So we completely understand that problem there. Any other questions on anything? If there are any questions, just, okay, hold on, we got something. I'm a new editor this year. If I have questions after the webinar, you could email Laura and myself, and between the two of us, we'll get back to you very quickly on an answer. With only 1 entry allowed in that category, it precludes. Okay, so we're talking back about category 19, the design layout. And as I said, this is one where our committee, I think we had about 5 different opinions for 5 people. This is 1 entry per media. Some contests that have a layout and design, it's per person that does the layout and design. It's always been 1 per outlet. So it's like a staff entry. It's something we would definitely look at. Some of us on the committee favor allowing multiple people who do layout, and then we allow maybe 2 or 3 entries per paper, or 5 like we've done in other categories. It didn't happen this year, majority ruled, and it's really a staff entry. So a lot of places have multiple designers. The bigger papers have multiple designers. So I know you want to get each one of them some credit, and you want them to each submit. Again, this criteria hasn't changed as far as I know in recent time of one. So yeah, if you had an illustration, that could be something that one designer might want to enter 3 illustrations, another designer 5 front pages. Completely aware of that. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do anything different on it this year other than rebrand it. Okay. If we enter a piece in the wrong category, will it be redirected to the correct category? Laura?
Yeah, so our team here at AJPA's reviews all of the articles. However, we do not read all of them, and we do scan them to make sure that they are generally in the correct category. For example, if someone enters the category about writing about women and the story is about food and drink, we will contact you and say, oh, I think you entered into the wrong category. However, if it's somewhat on the relative topic or somewhat similar, we do allow it, but we definitely do keep a lookout for ones that are obviously in the incorrect category.
So keep in mind that, KCA is our third-party vendor, good partner, but they're not journalists. They read newspapers and publications. We actually talked about if we wanted to have somebody on our committee look at certain entries as they arrived to make sure they were properly categorized. And we wholeheartedly said, we don't want to look at any entries because the committee has been accused of, well, it's our contest. We win all the time. We don't win. If you look at the 5 people on there, I can tell you 3 of us, we enter a ton of stuff and we rarely win, but we didn't want to put ourselves in a position of looking at something. That's why we added more criteria for you to follow and then hopefully for the judges. And again, when I say this is a work in progress and not 100%, I think as we add more judges who have worked in our field, and I know we brought on 7 people that have worked in the newspaper field, they are going to write up spot an incorrect entry and kick it back. Where a college professor is going to say, hey, this is what was sent to me, I'm going to judge them. So we are working in multiple directions on trying to improve everything. Okay. I don't see any other questions, I don't believe. Are there any other questions? Again, it's a 4-week window, but as we've seen in the past, we get no entries the first 2 weeks and the entries all come in the last 2 weeks. And I would only encourage you if you can get your entries in, as soon as you can. So KCA is not dealing with 800 entries the last 2 weeks and 50 the first 6 weeks or whatever it is now. That would be the best. And in the future, as we keep these categories primarily the same, hopefully people can put their entries away throughout the year. And then as soon as, January 8th comes or whatever it is, hopefully it'll be back in December next year, those entries could start coming in. We also, in the closing minutes, the committee has a lot of other ideas. We heard from a lot of you. I know not many of you were on that virtual webinar. A lot of people had surveys. We're looking at the pricing of contests, blind entries, removing some categories, adding some. What are some of the other things, Alan or Laura or anybody that we've talked about? We are always looking at trying to improve this. Podcast was a big one. And again, we're determining it by mass. The headline category was new last year. We had insufficient entries. We're looking at maybe keeping a category a maximum of 2 or 3 years, and then we pull it off if we can't improve it. And that's what the overall graphic design it was headed this year to be yanked because we had insufficient entries in some divisions, and we didn't want to do that right now. We think design is very important. We added last year a marketing and an advertising one. So if you guys have any ideas throughout the year, shoot, me or Laura or anybody on the committee some ideas.
I'll just pipe up that I think that, the committee does a really outstanding job with limited input. We don't get to meet as often as we should. We have only a limited time frame after the contest was announced late this year. We had a few months to gather our thoughts about what we did right and think about what we're going to do for this year, knowing, of course, that we were going to be probably writing in an environment that not many people were accustomed to in terms of writing from home and having to more or less think out of the box rather than think from an office standpoint. again, Bob, to your credit, we had more than 100 entries before last year that we'd never seen. And it was a wonderful opportunity for us to see what we did right, but also to examine where there were some holes where several entries got entered, perhaps maybe in the wrong categories and maybe slipped through that a lot of people were concerned about. And we think we've addressed those issues. So again, thank you for doing that. Again, want to thank all the people on the committee. Laura, of course, for keeping us under her reins of leadership as well, and steering us clear of any potential pitfalls. But you know, this is an award ceremony that seeks to honor the best that there is out there in Jewish journalism. And every year we see the cream of the crop rise. So we hope that this will be another indication that we're doing a good job, that you all are entering, and that you're being rewarded for really top-notch journalistic efforts. And again, I hope that if there are any other questions, they can address them either to you or to Laura. We'll certainly make sure that we consider some of these other suggestions. The writing about religion that Sue had mentioned, I think would have been our 40th category, because we were searching for a 40th category this year, and it fell into that time period where we just didn't have enough time to discuss it and debate it properly. So we decided 39 for 40 will be this year, and maybe next year we'll have that 40th category that we'll do, or maybe the 41st for the 41st year.
We'll see. Thank you, Al. Any other comments or questions on anything? You know, we're always available to hear if you have any questions. I don't want people not to submit because they're not sure of something. If you're not sure of something, ask us, and ask Laura or myself or Alan, and say, hey, I'm not quite sure that this fits in this category, so I don't want to enter it. And the other thing that we've heard for a long time is, I never win, so I don't want to enter. We think we're changing that mindset of, we're trying to get more people to win, and not the same people always. And that's why we've added, I think, 10 or 12 new categories in the past year, 2 years.
Yeah, and then just a reminder, since we've changed the divisions, we have asked everyone to fill out a survey, just asking your circulation, and if you are or have moved to digital or you're print only. We included this survey on the emails that we sent out, and it's also included on page 2 of the packet. We have received quite a bit of responses, but we do ask that everyone fills it out. And if you have any questions and wondering if someone from your team has already completed it, feel free to reach out to any of us at the AJP office, and we'll confirm with you if it has been answered or not.
Yeah.
And as well, if it has not been answered, when you log in to submit your articles, you'll pretty much see an error sign, because we need to assign you into the correct division. So if you go to enter and you're unable to enter, please go ahead and fill out that survey and get in contact with us, and we'll make sure to fit you in the right category, the right division, and get you all sorted.
So we're not looking at total readership, which, usually the ABC is 3.5 times your paid. We're not looking at your Jewish population, which some people suggested we categorize divisions like that. So this is actually, if you're a mail publication, you should be having your post office statement in the first or second issue in October. That's the easiest place to get the number, or what you're using on your marketing and sales data, probably. If there's no other questions, I do thank you. I thought this, 45 minutes or less for me is pretty good. And we got a lot answered, and I'm excited. I guess the contest kicks off right now, right?
Yep.
People can submit. Can't wait to see all the entries, and hopefully we'll see people in Atlanta this summer.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you, everyone.